Hello and welcome to In a Spiritual Sense, where we discuss all things spiritual. From growing your intuition, speaking with spirit guides, diving into past lives, the paranormal, and more, join me, Stacey Piagno, where we work to bridge the gap between science and spirit. Hello and welcome back to another episode of In a Spiritual Sense. I'm your host, Stacey Piagno, and I'm really excited about today's topic because today we're going to have some fun talking about energy and connect it to why we subconsciously do the things we do. And the whole reason this episode came about is because I was riding in the car with my fiance, and yes, I said fiance. As many of you have seen, we have recently been engaged, so that's exciting. But I was riding in the car with him and I put my hand on top of his and I started thinking, why do people hold hands? And then I started thinking, why do people hug? And with the little bit of information I knew, the first thing I thought is, well, I know we have energetic points in the palm of our hands that transfer energy. And of course, when we hug, our heart chakras can transfer energy. So I started thinking, I should take a deeper look into this. And one thing led to another. And now here I am diving into why we use certain hand motions and why we have phrases that have been passed down from generation to generation. And I thought I should be sharing this with my listeners. So here we are. Today's episode is going to be like a factual did you know episode, but spiritually and energetically speaking. And I'm excited to get into it. So since I've already touched on holding hands and hugging, we're going to start here and talk a little bit about the body's energetic system. And some of these energy centers, other than the 7 chakras, many people are probably used to hearing about. So, did you know we do have palm chakras? There are actually lots of energy systems on our hands, which is fascinating because we use our hands to create. So starting in the palm, we have energy that connects up through our shoulder and into our heart chakra. So this is why the hands are used for giving and receiving love. And the other chakra systems do connect into our hands as well, but we'll get there in a minute. So when holding hands with a loved one, you two are able to transfer this energy essentially from heart to heart. Again, this is why we also hug, because it is a direct exchange from heart to heart. I don't know if you've ever hugged someone straight on and just kind of sank into their chest and immediately felt calm and secure. But the next time you give a hug to someone, or the next time you receive a hug, take a minute to just breathe and feel the transfer of energy flow between the two of you. If you calm your mind, you can actually feel a chill of energy flow from one chest to the next. And you can think about this with children too. Think about why we hug a child who just got hurt, or why a hug comforts us when we're sad. It's because the heart chakra vibrates on the frequency of love, compassion, and empathy. And when transferring this frequency from one to another, it will either strengthen the frequency altogether or help rebalance that frequency where it may be lacking. And if there's one takeaway I would say that is important to acknowledge when working with hand energy, it's that the left hand is typically for receiving energy and the right hand is typically for giving energy. And I say typically because when working with energy, rules are fluid. They don't necessarily fit into a box. But generally speaking, the left hand is to receive and the right hand is to project. And I'll say I've been working with this basic understanding for a little while now, and I have actually gotten to the point where I can feel energy move through my body. And I do daily give and receive energy. So give attention to this and see if you start to feel anything for yourself. Now, in addition to the palms, I want to get into the fingers a little bit. You see, each finger does have an energetic point that connects to each of our chakras. They also extend to our organs and can even connect to astrological patterns and planets, which help contribute to our overall personality. So there are tons of layers to working with our hands. And from what I've noticed, depending on what subject matter you're working with, you will find different information on this. So for example, whether you're working with Reiki or palmistry or something other than that, you may may find different meanings with which finger connects to which chakra or which finger connects to which element. And what I've noticed is there are even different layers of energy on your hand. So depending on your intent for a particular subject matter, you may be looking at connecting each finger to a chakra, meaning each individual finger is going to connect to one of your chakra systems, or you may be looking at different regions on the hand. So for example, sometimes you will have different energy points going up your thumb, or maybe your wrist will connect to an area, then your lower palm, your middle palm, the upper palm, and all the fingers together. So there's a lot here, but I am going to focus more in the direction of palmistry and try to keep it as simple as possible. And something specifically that I was drawn to is the science behind why we wear rings on certain fingers. And also why we make certain hand motions, which is separate than palmistry. But as we go through each of these, you're going to see how, with these intentions in mind, you can take a step further into manipulating your own energy using your hands. Perhaps you're already doing it and don't even realize. So we're going to start with the pinkie, which is all about using your intuition. And it's also connected towards your attitude towards others and the world itself. It's linked to the element of water, which, as we've previously spoken about, is all about your subconscious and the emotional body. So this is why our intuition comes through and is connected here. Have you ever heard of making a pinkie promise? Of course you have. That is because it is the pinkie that holds the energy to empathetically connect a bond between two people. So if you wear rings on your pinkie, it will amplify this energy, especially if you use certain crystals like amber or citrine, which are connected to your solar plexus and it's about creating and doing and motivating. So it's an activating crystal. Or you could also wear crystals that will amplify intuition itself, such as amethyst or moonstone, and so many others. So moving to the ring finger, which is connected to the element of earth, many of you will probably start thinking about wedding bands. And that is because the ring finger is connected to our heart chakra. And as far as we know, the exchange of wedding bands actually started back in ancient Egypt, where people would exchange braided reeds and hemp that were placed on the ring finger of the left hand. And many other cultures will put wedding bands on the right hand as well, which I'm sure has meaning. But overall, it is the ring finger that connects to the heart chakra, which therefore represents love. Another fun fact for mystics in regards to wearing rings on your ring finger is that if the ring is purchased and gifted to you, it represents love and commitment, hence wedding bands. And if the ring is purchased by you, it represents self-love and self-worth. So it's either an inward or outward type of love. Next, the middle finger is all about personal identity, soul searching, and all that is important to us. It lies in the center of our hand, which represents balance, even justice and law. It is connected to the element of space, which is outside of the four elements most of us are used to hearing about, including myself. I don't know a lot about this element, but to say the least, the middle finger is all about representing your personal power. Now, I personally wear a labradorite ring on my middle finger, and it's placed on my right hand, which for me is symbolic for sharing my magic and healing. Because again, the right hand is the giver, and the metaphysical properties of labradorite are that it is connected to one's spirituality. It's a healer's stone, and it's very protective and amplifies one's energy. It also aids in philosophy and psychic abilities and many other things, but it's basically very much in alignment with my identity. And it also helps that when I went to go pick out the ring, it just so happens that this was the ring I was drawn to, and this is the finger that it fit on. So of course it was a perfect fit. So one idea for wearing rings on your middle finger is just to find something that represents you. Next, the index finger is all about the element of air, which again is about intellect and communication. This is also tied to our authority and ambition, and it represents leadership, confidence, and power. So a lot of times kings or rulers would wear rings on their index finger to show assertiveness. And this is also why we use our pointer finger to show, teach, and command. I always think about when an adult is getting onto a child or a pet, and we sit here and we point our finger at them. Or in a cartoon, sometimes you see somebody's angry and they're shaking their finger either up and down or from side to side, and this is because it's a form of authority. So we use this finger with anything that pertains to teaching or directing. Sometimes you'll also see a character raise their index finger when they have an idea. Well, again, that's because the index finger represents intellect. And so if you have an idea, you are using your mind and your thoughts. So having an idea and raising this finger, especially on the right hand, will show your logic coming through. Another lighthearted example of characters using index fingers for authority or power is with witches. Think about Bewitched or Sabrina the Teenage Witch or cartoon witches. They all use their index finger to cast spells. And this is because it aids in commanding energy and intention. And in real life, what's happening is you are building up your chi, or body's energy, to then direct this energy towards a certain area. And we'll get into this in a minute, but this fantasized idea of casting spells is actually somewhat scientific, especially when you mix it with intention and speech and even wands made of pointed crystals. So we'll get into that shortly. But let's get to the last finger, which is the thumb. And it is the thumb that is connected to the element of fire and the planet Mars. And for those of you astrologers out there, you will know that Mars is the planet that represents war. It's about one's strength, independence, and logic. So wear a ring here if you want to magnify your strength or independence. I will say, however, I have been told to be careful about wearing rings on your thumb because as it connects to your logic, that is the opposite of our intuition. So sometimes it can pull you away from using your intuition or intuitive side. But that's just something to be aware of as you set intentions for yourself. Also pertaining to the thumb, if you've ever wondered why we give a thumbs up, it's because as in war, battle, and competition, it is a sign of victory. Also, it could be a sign of decision making. So thumbs up or thumbs down, which again represents our power. So with all this finger symbolism, also remember wearing jewelry on your left hand is harnessing your intuitive side. It is the receiver. It intakes information and leans more on our feminine. And the right hand represents our masculine energy. So again, it is the projector and the activator. And if you really want to add another layer, look into the meaning and properties of wearing gold versus silver. They both have tons of benefits and can be used for different intentions. So if you are a jewelry wearer, think about what you currently have and what you want to portray within your vibrational field. And you can then begin to play with it all, thus beginning to manage and harness your magic. So, moving from hands to hugs to jewelry, I next want to get into mudras, which are another topic that incorporate the hands. And a mudra is basically a hand gesture that is often used in yoga to channel one's prana or life force. And we're not going to get into this too deep because there are over hundreds of different mudras, but some of the most common are attached to the seven chakra system that many of us are pretty familiar with now. And they're essentially used to charge or cleanse your chakra system, thus realigning your body and energy. So taking the bit of background that we just went through with our hands, you can now imagine how we can pair different energy systems on our hands together to create paths for energy to flow, thus unifying and bringing balance to the body. And something that I've learned is with our left hand representing the intuitive side or the feminine lunar energy, and our right hand representing masculine solar energy, when we place our hands together and put them in front of our heart chakra to pray, for example, this is a mudra that links both sides of our body together to create balance, calmness, and compassion. So it's a very well-known mudra, often used in prayer, and it's basically a hand gesture to center yourself. Another very common mudra, for example, is when you see someone sitting down to meditate and their index finger touches their thumb like an OK sign, and then their arms are extended with their palms faced up towards the sky. And this mudra promotes alignment within the root chakra. So in addition to these examples, there are many different gestures that you can look into that stimulate the chakras and give benefits to other areas of the body as well. And again, the way it works is because you're connecting different energy centers together that creates a path or current for energy to flow. It's like if you have an injury, and in order for you to heal that injury, you need to get blood flow towards that muscle or physical area. Well, energy is no different. You see, by creating a path for our body's energy to flow, then directing it towards a blockage, it helps cleanse and heal it. So if that is something that you're interested in, I would recommend looking into it deeper. I now, though, want to transition into one of my favorite topics, the power of speech. Have you ever heard the common phrase, abracadabra? Well, did you know there is actually meaning behind this phrase? You see, the term is really an ancient Aramaic phrase which appears several times in the Talmud, which either is or was the central text of Rabbinic Judaism. And originally pronounced abracadabra, this phrase translates into, I will create as I speak. And as many practicing mystics can tell you, the power of speech is used to intensify and intentionalize any type of spell, ritual, or prayer. And I think in the logical material world, we often dismiss the power of speech because we like to see to believe, and we base our reality on instant results. So if we don't see immediate outcomes, we have a hard time trusting. And this makes me think a lot about magic or spell work. Now, for those who may be practitioners of spell work or witchcraft, you guys keep doing your thing. But for those who are unfamiliar with these topics, I bet many of you would disregard its effect because we immediately relate it to what we see on movies or entertainment. And in movies like Harry Potter or anything with a fairy godmother, what we see is an instant result after the words have been said. And in reality, we see this has no effect. So we dismiss it as fantasy. But the reason we don't see an effect is because that's not quite how it works. You see, just because we don't see instant results doesn't mean that we can disregard magic or spell work or the power of speech itself. And as I stated earlier, you might have heard me compare the word prayer to spell work. And this is because prayer is more commonly accepted in our society, but it is prayer that holds the most basic foundation of spell work. It's one and the same. Because, again, you are using your energy to emit an outcome. The idea with spell work, I could say, is that sometimes you will use additional items to aid in your prayer. And to me, what is considered spell work is just one's opinion. It's a perspective. Spell work can be as simple as prayer itself, or it can be as complex as a pot full of materials with an affirmation attached to it. So let's talk about the power of words. If our intention is to create or manifest something, you may often hear people say words out loud or whisper a prayer beneath their breath. This is because words, just as thoughts, hold vibrations and frequencies. Thus, they take up matter. And when working to manifest something, you can think of it as the more support you add to a manifestation, the more powerful what you are trying to manifest will become. You see, the vibrations from our words and the vibrations from our thoughts, although extremely subtle, will create currents that flow from our body into time and space, thus linking us to the targets that we are trying to reach. So the more support you add to your wish or command or prayer, meaning the more you visualize or the more affirmations you speak, the more aligned those wishes and intentions will be with whatever it is you're attracting. Because everything is energy. And everything is vibrations. And the vibrations you emit will travel and pair up with other matching vibrations. And the stronger this current is that you're emitting, the stronger whatever it is you want will link up with you and materialize. It's like if you're swimming in the ocean and you start to swim in an actual current. It's going to help you get where you need to go faster. And if you're going in the same direction as it, it supports your path. This is an example of how speaking and visualizing can give you that added layer of energy and momentum to get you towards what you desire. Building on that, the act of manifesting takes it a step further from speech because in order for you to truly manifest what you want, you have to really use your thoughts to create a perspective that allows you to live on the frequency of what it is you are trying to achieve. So if there is something that you want, we have to learn how to live on that frequency of what it is this thing would emotionally give to us. Manifesting is living in the state of already having what you desire, whether you physically have it or not. I'm going to say that again. Manifesting is living in the state of already having what it is you desire, whether you have it or not. In layman's terms, feel how you would feel if you already had it and embody that. This will then attract you to what it is you want. And it doesn't have to be a material thing. This could be for anything, the physical, the emotional, the mental, or the spiritual. And so this is how the law of attraction works. Energy that is alike attracts and lives together. You're not going to have X energy living on the frequency of Y. X's live together and Y's live together. Therefore, if you want X, you have to learn to emotionally embody what it is that X produces. And you will soon be paired with what it is that you are wanting on that frequency. You see, often when there are things that we want, we will do everything to change our environment. But we don't change ourselves. We will keep asking and asking or complaining and complaining, but we are not allowing our mind and our words to shift us in the right lane. We may be vibrating on a lower frequency, but what we want is on a higher frequency. And us vibrating on that low frequency because we're still stressed or worried or annoyed that we don't have what it is we want is only going to keep us farther away from what it is we want. It took me a long time to fully digest this. So let's talk about it realistically. Say I want to be making more money because I need more money. Well, why do I need more money? What am I lacking without it? Well, my happiness, of course. Well, why am I not happy? Because I don't feel secure. I'm living on edge, paycheck to paycheck. So therefore, my vibration is low. It's dense. So the lack of money is giving me a dense feeling formed from a lack of security. So I need to work on bringing myself up to the vibration of what it is that security would give me. You see, a typical mistake that people will often make is that we will stay focused on the money and not what the money would give us. I might have said this before, but we have to find the root. And the root in this example is security. So how do we raise our vibration to attain what it is we want? Well, this is the challenging part because it means we have to learn how to live in harmony with what we think is discomfort. And I say think because remember, the mind creates the story that we're living in. And it's up to us to choose how we live our story. So we have to take our physical situation and look at it from different angles to find a perspective that gives us what we need. And finding a perspective that gives gratitude often fixes this problem. So back to the money. Well, we can either say, I don't have enough money, I'm not happy, I don't feel secure. Or we can say, I have a roof over my head, I have this physical body that I'm living in, and I have this experience of life. And we can learn to thrive in this vibration knowing that we are gracious for everything that we do have, not everything that we don't have. Therefore, we are secure, and so our frequency shifts. We become lighter, and we become thankful, and we attract more abundance. Not that we need it at this point, because we're already abundant with all that we do have, and we realize we have always been abundant. So, my point is, if we can learn to live on the vibration of what it is we want, we are intrinsically inviting in everything that we want. And speech and thought are tools that can be used to help when manifesting because they create matter, which acts as a current to propel us towards what it is we want. So life becomes fun. Now, if we can understand the power that speech and thoughts hold when manifesting, we must also understand the power it holds when speaking negatively, especially in regards to the body. Because as I just mentioned, our words and thoughts hold vibrations. And when speaking in terms of vibrations, you have low, dense vibrations that are composed of large, heavy wavelengths, and you have high, light vibrations that are composed of more condensed wavelengths. And if you're someone that lacks the awareness of what you are thinking, and saying, you are literally creating a vortex of energy around your system and within your system of matching wavelengths. Therefore, you are now living on a frequency that matches the vibration of what it is you're thinking and saying. And this is again what the law of attraction states. You get what you give, right? So with speech, you are using words and sounds which hold energy and produce vibrations. And those vibrations will in return affect the surrounding matter, which is you. And if your thoughts are opposite from what it is you're trying to obtain, you are now swimming against the very current you could be using to propel you. Now, there are lots of cool studies on this. One of which was done by Dr. Hans Jenny, who was a Swiss medical doctor and scientist. And it was Dr. Jenny that was a pioneer in experimenting how sounds affected matter. And a few ways he experimented with this was by placing different sand and fluids in and around a metal plate, and then bringing in vibrating frequencies from a surrounding speaker, which created beautiful patterns and rhythmic designs on the plate, thus proving sounds create patterns. From here, there were some other researchers who created, quote, visually compelling evidence of the power of sound. One was Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto, who was able to show potent effects of sound by photographing water crystals. And this was so interesting. What he found was that lighter styles of classical music would create beautiful geometric patterns within the water crystals, and heavy metal music actually broke the structure of even the most basic water crystals. And in addition to Emoto, there was French composer and acupuncturist Fabien Mamin and biologist Helene Grimmel, who experimented both with healthy and cancerous cells to, quote, see how they would respond to the voice and to various instruments. And you can look this up because it's fascinating, but Mamin and Grimmel were basically able to prove that, yes, sound can contribute to the destabilization of cancer cells. So yes, vibrations affect matter. And if our thoughts and words are creating vibrations, then our thoughts and words are constantly altering our state of being. So as we become more aware of this, it is really important to our state of being to monitor our words and thoughts, and even monitor what we watch and listen to. It all plays a role in shaping our brain and aura. Think about watching a horror movie. Have you ever paid attention to the song or sounds they use? Did you know that it is a hidden trick by movie composers to specifically use frequencies that alter our emotions when watching horror films? And sound actually has a stronger impact on us than the visuals. There are even frequencies that the ear cannot pick up on that the body does that mimic low, dense frequencies found in nature. So it mimics things like earthquakes, avalanches, or thunder. And these are always used in horror films because it makes us feel on edge. It makes us feel unsafe. And, quote, because of the way we're wired on an evolutionary level, we instinctively associate these ultrasound frequencies with looming danger. So acknowledging what you watch is something you might want to be conscious of, because whatever we watch, we intake. Therefore, we produce more of. Think about after watching a horror movie. I don't know about you, but I sure do keep thinking worrisome thoughts. And if I am producing worrisome thoughts, that means I am also attracting worrisome things. Or think about when you're watching a reality TV show and people are arguing or fighting. Does it ever change your mood? I've done this experiment on myself, both consciously and unconsciously. And what happens is when we see or watch something where people are arguing or fighting, we start to partake in those same emotions, just at a fraction of the intensity. Because by watching it, the brain is experiencing it. And our internal emotions and organs are firing the same way theirs are, just again at a fraction of the intensity. Because in order for your brain to understand what is happening, our body is subconsciously feeling those emotions. You might not notice it, but that's what's internally happening. And if our internal energy is producing the same emotions that we're watching or listening to, that means we are projecting a fraction of that frequency. And if we project it, we will also receive a fraction of that frequency. So at the least, it really makes you think about what kind of content is part of our day-to-day lives. The more you think and feel something, the more it happens. When you invite a thought in, you are beginning to manifest whatever that is. Talk about powerful. This is why we should be conscious of what is in our environment and what is in our thoughts. We are literally walking magnets. And that goes for the flip side as well. If you are watching or experiencing content that is healing, it's going to bring you into healing frequencies. That's why if you are feeling upset and you throw on a feel-good song, it instantly changes your mood. That's because music can and often is used as therapy. Just like if you're going through a heartbreak and you keep listening to songs about heartbreak, you're only going to continue suffering on that frequency. So experience whatever it is you want. That's why we're here, to live out different experiences. And I truly mean that. Just know that you are creating what you experience. Our environment truly is what shapes us, and we have a lot more control over it than we sometimes think. So be proactive with your environment. Now, last on the list, I want to talk a little about color theory. And for those out there who are artists, some of this might be super foundational to you because as artists, we do learn about color theory. But if you have not learned about color theory, it's pretty interesting. And we're just going to touch on parts of it. But the first thing I want to acknowledge is how color has been used in the marketing industry when it comes to food. And for those of you who have a design background, you have heard this, but if you ever noticed how most fast food restaurants all incorporate red into their design, this is because it's a marketing strategy used to make us hungry, thus making us crave that McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, the list goes on and on. But why? Why does red make us hungry? Well, you see, colors are made of energy, and the energetic composition of each color produces certain vibrations or wavelengths. And it just so happens that these same colors are composed within our body's chakra system, which I know we've spoken tons about. And the root chakra, which is responsible for security, stability, physical desires, survival, thus the basic need of hunger and eating, vibrates red. So when you see red or come in contact with red vibrations or wavelengths, what happens is our hunger becomes activated because that vibration of red vibrates on the same level as our root chakra, thus activating and energizing it. So red is a color that stimulates and is often used in fast food logos, which we already crave enough as it is. So it has become just another layer of marketing genius that many restaurants will do to get you in their doors. And for the same reason that red stimulates, we have other colors that offer different experiences, such as blues and purples, whose vibration is higher, meaning their wavelengths are closer together. It's lighter. It's not so dense and heavy as the long, drawn-out wavelengths of red. So it brings us into our upper chakras and resonates on the frequency of tranquility, wisdom, and our intuition. Yellow produces the wavelength that matches optimism and willpower, and it vibrates with motivation. Green vibrates with the heart, so anything with compassion and healing. And just as we have different vibrations of colors, therefore different vibrations of feelings, what happens is it creates different levels and currents of perspectives. And what I mean by that is when someone is lighthearted, they have good vibrations. They're very up and positive, as opposed to living on dense, heavy wavelengths. Different experiences are therefore born. So existing on a wavelength or experiencing a wavelength or vibration or frequency will not only give us a feeling, but an experience. And because life is full of vibrations, life is full of experiences, full of ups and downs, as some say. So if I continue anymore, we will probably get stuck down another rabbit hole. So we'll keep it short and sweet and save some of this stuff for later. But this sure has been an energetically speaking conversation today. And I would love to make another episode on this kind of stuff. So if anyone has any questions or topics about why we do the things we do, or honestly, just anything that has to do with energy, comment down below or send an email to info@inaspiritualsense.com and I can come up with some more content for you guys. But with that said, that is all I have for you guys today. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And as usual, use it to inspire those around you. And I will see you next week on In a Spiritual Sense. For those looking to connect further, please feel free to send emails to info@inaspiritualsense.com or hit me up on Instagram at spiagno, that is SPIAGNO, where you can find weekly inspiration and updates. I look forward to connecting with you.